Vedanta! Vedanta! Out! 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 Vedanta! Vedanta! Out! 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 Vedanta! Vedanta! Out! Out! Out!
We're outside Vedanta's AGM and we're here to present some of our concerns to Vedanta, especially those regarding human rights violations in Niyamgiri and the Lanjigad refinery area.
We'll be handing over a petition of 30,000 people who in just a couple of months have indicated their own concern about the proposed expansion to the refinery and the proposed mine.
This is a banner which was put together by an Amnesty youth group. The children at the school put together this banner which represents their feelings and their views about what Vedanta are proposing in India.
Well, many people around the world, millions of people around the world have seen the film Avatar and been moved by its message. And many people see the Dongria Khond as a real-world example of this struggle between corporate greed and the survival of tribal peoples. But the Dongria struggle is real, it's urgent and it's irreversible. There'll be no pressing rewind if this mine goes ahead.
The communities have been completely ignored, kept out of the decision-making processes of the clearances for the refinery. So we want the company and the authorities to fundamentally tell the people the truth about the projects, not misinform them, inform them, let them decide and then abide by the decision. Simple.
We want to show the shareholders just how angry people in this country are about the kinds of things they're doing. Particularly, of course, in Orissa, where they're forcing people from their land and their livelihood. And we're really here to support the kind of resistance that's going on there and to show that people here also are angry about that. We don't want these things done in our name because Vedanta is a British company.
The AGM that we've just been through was, in many respects, I think, a symptom of a much deeper problem, which is that for some years now the company hasn't been engaging properly with a range of stakeholders, including minority shareholders, and presumably the Dongria Khond, although I obviously can't speak on their behalf. And I think the fact that approximately 99% of the AGM agenda was spent simply talking about its environmental and its social performance rather than the proper business of the company and its growth prospects, its broader finances, is symptomatic of a culture that hasn't properly engaged with the underlying issues of sustainability. And I was quite concerned at the response that we got to the question around the OECD guidelines for multinational enterprises, which they have been one of the very few companies to have been held up as in breach of, and they appeared not to be particularly concerned or that engaged. And I know they are only voluntary standards and a general guideline, but to treat them with the disdain that they appear to have done is simply not acceptable.
I'm chair of the all-party parliamentary group for tribal peoples, and I'm a member of Parliament. There were very many questions from Amnesty International, from investors, from some corporate investors as well. And a general conclusion, I thought, from many of the participants that Vedanta's record on communication with shareholders on this issue was very poor.
I think it's a demonstration of the fact that they don't seem to be concerned. They seem to be concerned only of their profits.
Vedanta were very dismissive of any of the questions raised by us or shareholders. I think the last couple of questions they didn't even bother answering. I think a lot of their answers were very, very general. It really doesn't bode well for the company. It doesn't bode well for the message that they're sending out to the investors on how important investors are and how important investor relations are.
The one thing I can say is that Mr. Agarwal and the board of Vedanta did not answer all the questions and the concern that shareholders had, and that I leave very concerned and very worried that this was not a very good shareholders meeting and that it did not answer our concerns about the survival of the Khond people and about their about the track record, about the environment and about human rights.
When we handed the petition in, Bianca Jagger read out the statement on the petition. People were clapping. I think that was a very somber moment. Perhaps the most somber moment was when people stood up for a minute's silence to commemorate those who were killed in the collapse of the Korba chimney in Vedanta's plant. What happens next? We continue campaigning on the same issues. We know where the companies stand. We want to put more pressure on investors. We think they should be making their voices heard. Until now, investors have been largely silent on these issues. And we very much hope and expect that the Ministry of Environment will not grant clearance for the mine to go ahead, that there won't be a license for the expanded refinery, and that Vedanta will learn the lessons of this and make sure that in future they do proper human rights impact assessments and consult with affected communities.